Information Station 1370 WOCA.
Ocala.
All right, 23 minutes before 9 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in to The Source, WOCA. This is the segment of the morning show where Robin and I go through the news from around the world, around the nation, around the state, and around Ocala and Marion County. And we bring you that news in abbreviated form. We shorten the news, we cut to the chase, get to the point, give you an opportunity without spending all day in front of the TV to figure out what's going on in this world of ours. And we also give you the information so that in case our version of the news is just a little too brief for you, you can go online and read the longer version of the news. We give you the resources that we get the news from, in other words. And the first story is from ABC News. A little troubling, too. Several dozen suspected terrorist bomb makers, including some believed to have targeted American troops, may have mistakenly been allowed to move to the United States as war refugees, according to FBI agents investigating the remnants of roadside bombs recovered from Iraq and Afghanistan. The discovery in 2009 of two al-Qaeda Iraq terrorists living as refugees in Bowling Green, Kentucky, who later admitted in court that they had attacked U.S. soldiers in Iraq, prompted the Bureau to assign hundreds of specialists to an around-the-clock effort aimed at checking its archive of 100,000 improvised explosive devices collected in the war zones known as IEDs for other suspected terrorists' fingerprints. We are currently supporting dozens of current counterterrorism investigations like that, is a statement from FBI agent Gregory Carl, who is the director of the Terrorist Explosive Device Analytical Center. He made that statement in an interview with ABC News, with an ABC News reporter, and that will be broadcast tonight on ABC News World News with Diane Sawyer and Nightline.
A growing grassroots campaign is currently underway in England to help a distraught little girl reunite with her beloved stuffed animal that went missing this past weekend on a family trip to London. When the girl's mother, Zoe Stewart, realized that the floppy-eared Mr. Rabbit, which had been with her 3-year-old daughter Ruby almost since birth, was lost, she quickly turned to her social media followers on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for help. This simple plea struck a chord, and thousands of people have joined the search. As of Monday night, 48 hours since Stewart's first post, the initial tweet has been retweeted more than 1,100 times, and the Facebook post shared almost 8,000 times. Two British TV personalities, Cherry Healey and Kirsty Alsop, even tweeted about it. Local newspapers have written about it, and the hashtag #IfMindMyRabbit has begun to pick up traction. Despite a brief moment of hope Monday that he had been found, it turned out not to be Mr. Rabbit after all, but rather a plush lamb.
White supremacist serial killer Joseph Paul Franklin was executed this morning after the U.S. Supreme Court rejected his final requests for a stay. This, according to a statement from prison officials in Bon Terre, Missouri. CNN affiliate KMOV is where we're getting this story from. They reported that Franklin was executed at 6:17 a.m. Central Time, which is 7:17 our time. In other words, just over an hour and a half ago. The execution, which had been scheduled for shortly after midnight this morning, was delayed for hours because of court appeals. And there you go. He, by the way, said that the killing he did was the will of God. So.
People magazine has named Adam Levine 2013 Sexiest Man Alive View. Let me start over. People magazine has named Adam Levine 2013's Sexiest Man Alive. Maroon 5 frontman Adam Levine must be feeling good. He's engaged to Victoria's Secret model Bahati Prinsloo, co-hosting on the hit reality singing competition The Voice. To top it all off, he's so sexy that he's been named People Magazine's 6th sexiest man alive. The Voice host Carson Daly made the announcement during a live episode of The Voice on NBC. Looking slightly embarrassed, Levine smiled and murmured, "Thank you." Levine graces the cover of the magazine's special issue, which will hit newsstands in New York and Los Angeles today and nationwide on Friday. The Moves Like Jagger singer joins the select club of Hollywood heartthrobs who have taken the title since the magazine first began bestowing it in 1985. The sexiest man of 2012 was Magic Mike, actor Channing Tatum.
And the next story is from the Associated Press. 3 small planes flying in or headed to Mexico have crashed in 2 days, leaving at least 6 people dead and 2 missing. A Mexican-registered Cessna 150 crashed yesterday afternoon shortly after takeoff from Mina International Airport in the Gulf Coast of Tampico in northeastern Tamaulipas state. The pilot and passenger were killed, according to the report. Later in the day, a Learjet that left the airport in Fort Lauderdale here in Florida for Cozumel, Mexico, plunged into the Atlantic Ocean with 4 people on board. The Learjet 35 with Mexican registration went down in the sea after taking off from Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport. Federal Aviation Administration spokeswoman Kathleen Bergen said in an email. The Coast Guard said in a news release late yesterday that search crews had found the wreckage about 2 miles northeast of the airport. It said 2 deaths were confirmed and the search continued for the 2 others who were aboard the plane.
They're the duck-calling, bird-hunting, ratings-busting phenomenon known as Duck Dynasty. The patriarch Phil Robertson leads the down-to-earth millionaires for the Everyman clan into the homes of millions each week, and ever by his side is his wife, Kay. But now audiences are getting a rare glimpse at their life before fame and fortune, seeing the demons that preceded the dynasty in a candid new film out this week by the Christian group I Am Second. The Robertsons reveal their very personal struggles with the alcohol and infidelity that almost broke them apart. They say their lives turned around when Kay convinced Phil to meet with a pastor. That was the beginning, they say, and then Phil invented his famous duck call, the Duck Commander, which turned into $1 million business and now the phenomenally popular reality show. Phil says all the credit goes to God.
And this is from the Associated Press. A 10-year-old Detroit area girl is suing to try to get her dog back from her mom's former boyfriend. Hannah Wise says that Mitchell Rector wouldn't return a poodle named Mystery after the Farmington Hills girl and her mother moved out of his home last spring. Hannah is the plaintiff in the lawsuit filed in Oakland County with the consent of her mother, Adrienne Lenhoff, according to the Oakland Press of Pontiac. According to the lawsuit, Rector agreed to take care of the dog only while they got settled in a new home. Hannah said Mystery was a gift from her grandmother 3 years ago. He was part of me, the girl said. He would come in my bed and snuggle up to me. Rector wouldn't give me back my dog, she said, and he knew that I cared about the dog so much. It was really heartbreaking for me. On Friday, Hannah spoke about her experience to have 500 people during a storytelling event at the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History in Detroit. The crowd cheered for the girl. Rector's lawyer, Jonathan Jones, responded to the girl's complaint, according to the Oakland County Clerk's office, saying the plaintiff abandoned the dog, gave it to the defendant to take care of, knowing he wanted to take care of the dog, and took another dog with her when she left.
On the eve of the resumption of nuclear talks in Geneva, Iranian President Hassan Rouhani has asked China and Russia for their support against excessive demands of some countries. Nuclear talks in Geneva are due to resume today when Iranian Foreign Minister Javad Zarif meets with EU Foreign Policy Chief Catherine Ashton. On Thursday and Friday, the Iranian delegation will meet with representatives from the P5+1 countries. That includes Britain, China, France, Germany, Russia, and the United States. In phone calls this week, the Iranian president told Chinese President Xi Jinping and Russian President Vladimir Putin that significant progress has been made at the last round of negotiations, but that excessive demands could complicate the process towards a win-win agreement. This is from the Jerusalem Post.
And this story is from CNN. Look to the heavens along the East Coast. This must have been last night. I'm sorry. I guess last night, the Air Force sent 29 satellites into space. This must have been written before it went up. The 29 satellites, the most ever launched at one time, were on board a single Minotaur 1 rocket that was scheduled to take off from NASA's Wallops Flight Facility in Virginia. Last night, they included the main payload, the Air Force's Space Test Program Satellite 3, and 28 tiny satellites called CubeSats. The CubeSats are aptly named, also called nanosatellites. They are small cubes about 4 inches on each side, weighing about 3 pounds, and with a volume of about a quart. Among the CubeSats is the TJ-3 sat, built by the students of Thomas Jefferson High School for Science and Technology in Alexandria, Virginia. It will be the first satellite made by high school students that goes into space.
Barack Obama admitted yesterday that the task of rebranding has troubled healthcare reforms will be challenging because of the partisan nature of Washington politics, with Republicans, quote from Obama, invested in failure. Speaking before an audience of business leaders, the president acknowledged he had underestimated how fierce opposition would prove to be after forcing the Affordable Care Act through Congress with only Democratic votes. This is a quote from Obama. We should have anticipated that the ideological resistance would result in a rockier rollout than if Republicans and Democrats had both been invested in success. One side of Capitol Hill is invested in failure, and that makes the iterative process of fixing glitches as they come up and fine-tuning the law more difficult. We are going to have to rebrand and remarket, and that will be challenging in this political environment, unquote, reported by The Guardian.
And this is from the Associated Press. Former President George W. Bush showed off his painting and his granddaughter and poked fun of his post-White House years on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno last night. The 43rd president said that he was inspired to take up painting after reading a Winston Churchill essay. When he hired an instructor for weekly lessons, he said he told her, "There's a Rembrandt trapped in this body. Your job is to find it." Bush shared paintings of his dog Barney and a stray cat that he adopted and named Bob, so I can remember how to spell it when I get older, he said, and said painting has changed his life. He presented Leno with a portrait of the comedian, prompting Leno to say, "I can't make fun of him now." When asked what caused a blocked artery that led to his hospitalization in August, the 67-year-old Bush joked that it was because he didn't behave that well when he was younger and that he might have smoked some.
Vice President Joseph R. Biden vowed Monday that Obamacare eventually will be a success, but added a crucial qualifier, God willing. Mr. Biden, widely rumored to be mulling his own White House run in 2016, has good reason to call for divine intervention in turning around what has been a disastrous rollout of the Affordable Care Act. Biden's political ambitions will be tied directly to the law he once called a big expletive deal. Its success would give the vice president a key selling point. Its failure would weigh down and possibly sink his campaign, reported by the Washington Times.
And this is from Reuters news agency. Residents of a small central Illinois city hit by a powerful tornado were allowed back to comb through the wreckage of their homes for personal belongings yesterday, 2 days after the deadly storm caused an estimated $1 billion in property damage across the Midwest. Authorities doubled to 1,000 their estimate of homes damaged or destroyed in the fast-moving storm that hit Washington, a town of 15,000 people located 145 miles southwest of Chicago. The storm system triggered multiple tornadoes on Sunday that tore through the Midwestern United States, killing at least 6 people in Illinois and 2 people in Michigan. Hundreds of Washington residents were cleaning out belongings and loading things onto trucks yesterday to the sound of chainsaws cutting through fallen trees. Dick Bowers was looking through the remains of his son's destroyed home for a filing cabinet filled with personal papers. I don't know who that is, but...
Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid says he's considering changing his chamber's rules to make it harder for Republicans to use filibusters to block President Barack Obama's nominations. The Nevada Democrat told reporters yesterday that he is considering rules changes that would affect nominations for top agency jobs, but not for Supreme Court justices. Reid spoke the day after Senate Republicans blocked a third Obama nominee since October 31st to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit. That court is considered one of the nation's most powerful because it reviews White House and federal agency actions, reported by the Las Vegas Sun.
And this is from Fox News. A Buffalo Bills fan who was injured in a fall from the upper deck of Ralph Wilson Stadium during Sunday's game between the Bills and the New York Jets has lost his job. Buffalo ad firm Eric Maurer and Associates released a statement yesterday saying that Rob Hopkins is no longer employed by EMA. Hopkins was inadvertently filmed on the CBS broadcast of Sunday's game sliding down a safety railing in the 300 level of the stadium. As the cameras kept rolling, Hopkins could be seen losing his balance and falling over the railing to the 200 level, a drop of about 30 feet. Witness Jeff Savage told the New York Post that Hopkins immediately got up and said he was okay, but was stopped by security from leaving the scene. Emergency workers put a neck brace on Hopkins and took him out of the stadium in a chair stretcher. Savage said that the fan Hopkins landed on was taken out of the stadium on a backboard after security had kept him upright in his seat to await medical attention. In other words, he fell on a guy.
Oh. Senator Lindsey Graham, South Carolina Republican, said yesterday that a bad deal on Iran's nuclear program will lead to full-fledged war. Mr. Graham said forcing Iran to dismantle its nuclear program is possible. And if the country does want a commercial nuclear program, the fuel cycle should be controlled by the international community. This is a quote: "If you don't back off the sanctions, which the president wants us to do, if you infuse this regime with $10 billion and you don't dismantle their capability to produce a weapon, the international community is going to say, aha, sanctions are behind us, and they're going to race to do business with Iran." Mr. Graham said this statement on Fox and Friends. This is reported by the Washington Times.
And this one from MSNBC. While many Americans have been led to believe the war in Afghanistan will soon be over, a draft of a key U.S.-Afghan security deal obtained by NBC News shows the United States is prepared to maintain military outposts in Afghanistan for many years to come and pay to support hundreds of thousands of Afghan security forces. The wide-ranging document, still unsigned by the United States and Afghanistan, has the potential to commit thousands of American troops to Afghanistan and spend billions of U.S. taxpayer dollars. The document outlines what appears to be the start of a new, open-ended military commitment in Afghanistan in the name of training and continuing to fight al-Qaeda. The war in Afghanistan doesn't seem to be ending, but renewed under new, scaled-down U.S.-Afghan terms.
The National Security Agency spying scandal is poisoning talks to forge a far-reaching U.S.-EU trade deal, German Chancellor Angela Merkel said. This is a quote: "The relationship with the U.S. and the negotiation of a transatlantic free trade agreement are currently, without doubt, being put to the test by the accusations that have been aired against the United States about the gathering of millions of bits of data," Merkel told the lower house of Germany's parliament. Officials in Berlin expressed outrage last month after NSA document leaked by former NSA contractor Edward Snowden indicated Merkel's personal cell phone was tapped by the United States Surveillance Agency for a decade. This is reported by UPI News.
And this from the Associated Press. 4 San Antonio women imprisoned for sexually assaulting 2 girls in 1994 have achieved their first aim, which is freedom. Their next step is to fight for exoneration, and that is what their attorneys intend to pursue before the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals. Elizabeth Ramirez, Christy Mayhew, and Cassandra Rivera were released Monday night on their own recognizance. That was after a judge decided to recommend that an appeals court vacate their 1998 convictions as tainted by faulty witness testimony. The fourth woman, Ana Vasquez, was released on parole last year. The women have not been exonerated formally. Bexar County prosecutors have said they don't intend to retry them if the appeals court vacates the convictions. However, they disagree with the women's attorneys that they should be declared formally innocent. Exoneration would allow them to collect money that Texas pays to the wrongfully imprisoned. The women and their attorneys were expected to describe their next steps in their pursuit of exoneration later this week. The release of the women on Monday was delayed for about 6 hours by paperwork issues from the Texas Department of Criminal Justice.
Missouri executed a multiple murderer just after midnight, in which the state was, for the first time, using a lethal dose of pentobarbital obtained from a secret compounding pharmacy. This was barred during last-minute interventions by the courts. Joseph Paul Franklin, age 63, died for a spate of 7 murders of black and Jewish people carried out between 1977 and 1980. He was suspected in as many as 20. Though there were no doubts about Franklin's guilt or the heinousness of the racist killing in which he was engaged, this procedure is controversial by dint of its protocol. In order to keep the identity of the pharmacy that supplied the drugs a secret, the Missouri Corrections Department has listed the company as a member of its execution team, thereby extending it to the right of anonymity. This is reported by The Guardian.
No, I apologize. I included that twice. I didn't realize I did that. Next story is from CBS. There's a hidden battle over stolen smartphones. Last year, more than 1.5 million Americans had their devices taken, and New York City saw a 40% jump to smartphone thefts. There is a solution known in the industry as a kill switch, but as CBS News senior correspondent and FBI insider John Miller reported on CBS this morning, that idea has been met with some heavy resistance. It can happen anywhere, anytime, walking on a city street or even buying tickets for public transportation. Thieves will do almost anything to get their hands on smartphones.
The ongoing war of words between Chris Christie and the Republican Party continued when the newly elected New Jersey governor said his party was partially responsible for the dysfunction in Washington and criticized the strategy of forcing a shutdown over Obamacare. But the strongest bit of vitriol was reserved for those Republicans who criticized Christie for working closely with President Obama in the wake of Superstorm Sandy, which destroyed much of the New Jersey coast. Some critics went so far as to say it cost Mitt Romney the 2012 election, reported by CBS.
And the last story is from Toronto. Toronto's disgraced mayor, Rob Ford, who has admitted to smoking crack and binge drinking, has said he is not perfect and takes full responsibility for the embarrassment he has caused. But in interviews aired yesterday, Rob Ford, who on Monday was stripped of most of his powers, disputed he has an alcohol problem. "I've embarrassed not just myself, my family, my friends, my supporters, my whole city," Mr. Ford told NBC News Today show host Matt Lauer. He went on to say, "I take full responsibility for that. We've all made mistakes. I'm not perfect," but he does want to keep his job, I guess. All right, we've got to move forward. That's the end of our segment called News Bites. We attempt to bring you as many stories as we can in that 20 or 23-minute segment each weekday morning. If you've never heard it before, and this is the first time, we do it every weekday morning. It's a way for us to put news back in news talk and you on with you. Get on with your life. We get the news in a little bit of time, and we hopefully helps you out a little bit. Robert, how many stories do we get in there
24.
today? 24 today. Not bad. All right, we'll take a little break and be right back. Thank you.
Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA.
Ocala.
ABC News Now. I'm Karen Chase. Tough Texas abortion restrictions will stand while they're appealed. That ruling from the Supreme Court likely will mean a third of the state's abortion clinics will stop performing the procedure, since the regulations require doctors who work in them to have admitting privileges at nearby hospitals. A measure to outlaw abortions after 20 weeks was voted down in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Commercial pilots may be ordered to shape up or turn in their wings. The FAA is considering requiring obese pilots to undergo flight fitness evaluations because they're at higher risk of sleep apnea and cognitive impairment. Americans leave $500,000 in change at airport security checkpoints every year, which the TSA keeps for agency funding. However, a move in Congress would donate it to charity. A wristwatch that's believed to have been used to declare the time of death for President John F. Kennedy is going up for auction in New York and expected to fetch up to $150,000. It belonged to a Texas neurosurgeon and originally bought for him by his mother for $750. This is ABC News.
Hey, it's me, Mike Rowe, here with Fiona Doran, a service advisor to Ford dealership. I've got about 60 seconds today to convince you that Ford is actually in the tire business. I'll be asking the questions. Fiona, she'll be answering them. How are you, Fiona?
Wonderful. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. Are you ready?
I am.
If I need new tires for my Ford, where should I go?
Your Ford dealership.
And who carries 11 major brands?
Your Ford dealership.
And who's having a big tire event?
Your Ford dealership.
You're basically going to say your Ford dealership no matter what I say, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
Nice shoes. Where'd you get those?
Your Ford dealership.
Come see the vehicle experts and get a $70 mail-in rebate when you buy 4 select tires. Plus another $70 when you use the Ford Service credit card. That's up to $140.
What's the capital of Wisconsin?
Your Ford dealership.
That's technically not true.
Subject to credit approval. Rebate by check. Other tire manufacturer rebate or offer cannot be combined, or Ford Service credit card rebate or offer. See your participating Ford dealer for details through 12/31/13.
The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Life jackets save lives. Wear it, Florida. Today will turn out mainly cloudy with a couple of showers around, especially during the afternoon hours, the high 75 to 79. Tonight, partly to mostly cloudy tonight. There may be a shower in spots near the coast. The low 65 to 72. For tomorrow, some sun with a passing shower, high 78 to 82. Friday, intervals of clouds and sun, chance for a shower along the coast, the high 79 to 83. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Joe Lundberg.
How good does it get?
Golf has long been considered to be sport's most prestigious game, and WOCA has your connection to everything in the golf world. Every first and third Thursday at 10 a.m., tune in for